Roll call.
Chisel. Neal. Olson. Luce. Here. Zittergruen.
Here.
Hadley.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Is there anybody who wishes to approach the bench for anything that is not on the agenda? And I know we have companies, so would you like to come up and explain what the Boy Scouts are up to? Just step up. Nope, just come right up to the microphone and then just state your name and
My name is Jeremy Smith, Scoutmaster for Troop 66 here in Decorah. And there's about 5 scouts here tonight that are working on or getting started with citizenship and the community merit badge. So they just need to come to a city council meeting is one requirement to see the issues and talk about the issues with their counselor. So
that sounds great. Thank you for being here.
Boy Scout.
Thanks for the work. Consent agenda.
Item A, minutes of the May 15, 2023 regular meeting. B, claims. C, partial pay application number 1 for 2023 street improvement asphalt resurfacing project. D, partial pay application number 2 for 2022 Pleasant Avenue improvements project. E, reappointment of Aaron Detter and Molly McNichol to Sustainability Commission. F, tobacco permits. G, renewal and ownership amendment to Class E retail alcohol license, Casey's General Store, number 1591, College Drive. And H, Nordic Fest special event permit.
I'll move to approve. Second.
Motion made by Hadley, seconded by Luz. Discussion. Roll call.
Hadley,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried. In case you haven't noticed the air atmosphere, and you'll have to bear with me as I sound a little like I have a frog in my throat. Consider resolution amending 28E agreement with Rural Fire Association. I'm going to give some background since
Sure.
on that, please.
Sure. So if council recalls, so the city has a 28E agreement with the Rural Fire Protection Association, and we provide fire protection to the surrounding townships. Council remembers there was a conversation a few months back, and if you had questions, comments, get with Emily Neal to discuss those. A small group of us did meet with the rural fire trustees and talked to great length. And so the proposed amendment, the current payment for fiscal 23 is $44,000. In previous years, it had remained pretty stagnant at 40,000. So the proposed amount would for fiscal 24, which begins July 1 of 2023, it runs through June 30, 2024, would be for $50,000, and the renewal annually for a total of 5 years, with subsequent years increasing by the 12-month CPI. So this is what we had discussed, actually had been over a year ago, of getting a contract that adjusts annually with the CPI. And so that's what we've come to terms.
What kind of questions does the council have?
I'd like to be able to understand what January of the renewal year means.
So from January, so let's say we're calculating 25. So that's July 1 of 2024 through June 30, 2025. You go back to that January of 25 and it's the preceding 12-month CPI.
And calendar year.
Correct. So that's the preceding CPI.
What I hope it meant, but thank you.
Any other questions? I
think is there a resolution also?
It's for a resolution.
Yeah.
Resolution, yes.
So we should move it, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I would like to move the resolution.
Second by Luce.
Motion made by Zittergruen, seconded by Luce. Any further discussion?
Good.
I want to just thank you to the rural department, also to the Public Safety Committee for working through this and coming up with a solution that we can go forward with.
I was just going to also especially acknowledge Emily's hard work on really understanding this issue and her leadership on this. I was grateful for it. And I just wanted to observe that our fire department budget for next fiscal year is $510,000. And so even though half of the calls do leave city limits, it's very good that we're getting more of a contribution from our friends in the Rural Fire Protection District. But as I learned a little more about this process, I learned that a lot of their aid to this city was sort of in-kind donations, contributions of equipment, contributions to vehicles. It still feels on balance to me, but I'm grateful that we're getting it closer to something that's a good deal for the Decorah taxpayer.
Thank you. Roll call.
Zittergren,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consider resolution regarding City of Decorah's fee structure. Can you give us background on that, please?
Yes, so city staff has, I've tasked city staff with reviewing different fees. These fees are the building code as well as a couple of PD related tickets, but primarily focused on the city building code. We'll see some more associated with water, sewer coming in the near future. But these fees are associated with the building permit and rental inspection programs. And these revenues are meant to cover the costs associated by the program, resulting in not using property tax revenues, not having to be a property tax cost to administer. So in the Dropbox, there were several fees, they're all existing fees, but adjustments that range up to 6.8% for changes within that fee structure. Black numbers are the ones that are currently in place. Red numbers are the ones that are proposed.
Travis, can I ask, did you just do an analysis of how many inspections Greg did for, $300,000 house? I mean, how are you factoring that, to make sure that this is breaking even?
These are primarily based on total revenues. So aggregate focus, not individual, because when we bring them in as a revenue, it's a rental permit or a building permit. We don't know if it's a multifamily when it comes into the accounting software side. So we can't, it would take a lot more staff time to do that level of
Yeah,
analysis.
that's why I was wondering what you did. So you're just basically saying that with these changes, you anticipate that on average, we'll bring in enough fees to cover the costs of having the inspection program?
Correct, because we currently are, so these will keep us right ahead of having to, being able to stay ahead of them.
A year and a half ago, I had a question asked me about the fee for solar panels and things. That it seemed like having the fee that Greg was paid, and when he didn't really have anything except to go out and look at it and say yes. Seemed a little, but I didn't see anything about solar in this section. Am I right?
Yeah, I don't believe the proposed section has any changes on the solar side.
Thank you.
When would these take effect?
July 1.
And a permit is good for 1 year? Building?
Project has to start within 6 months. Is that correct? Valid for another year after that.
But I think that's the same as BOA and curb cuts and other things. So I mean, at least we're standard.
Just asking.
Yeah.
Council site plan, actually, same thing, 6 months, you must start.
Okay, so this is consider resolution.
Luce would move the resolution for adoption.
Second.
Motion made by Luz, seconded by Chisel. Any further discussion?
I was conflicted on this one. It seems, I can appreciate wanting the program to be solvent, but there are so many parts of what we do that make our city better that we don't ask that question of, is it paying its own way? I mean, our roads don't pay their own way. Our library doesn't, our parks don't, our pool doesn't. We're happy to subsidize those things with taxpayer dollars. And right now, one of Decorah's greatest needs is more housing. And this is not a big additional barrier to more housing, but it's an increase in the cost of housing in Decorah. It's also a disincentive for people to improve the existing housing stock to the extent that we're raising the cost of the city's administrative burdens associated with it. So, I guess, I don't know. I was kind of surprised by this, and I feel like hard on the heels of a forestry utility and sewer and water utility rate increases. I don't feel like the timing is very good for announcing another fee increase. It feels like, I have some sympathy for people who feel like every time they open the newspaper, they feel like they're reading about additional costs. And I guess that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And I guess I'll take the counterpoint, not about building fees, but about the police department fees. A $10 fee. Chief, I don't know what your hourly rate is, but I don't think $10 is going to cover the paperwork on an incident report. I think we should at least be collecting especially at an accident report. If it's an accident report to the police, does that mean it's over $500 and it's in a potential insurance claim?
The drivers are given copies of reports if you're involved in a motor vehicle accident. Doesn't matter if it's $1,500 where we pull a state accident report, or if it's under $1,500, we give them a motor vehicle driver exchange. I sent Travis and Carrie both some information on fees and the structures they are for the state of Iowa. And there's some legislation out there about what we can and cannot do with fees.
Of course there is. Thank you, state of Iowa. Is this the cap?
Yeah, I don't remember. I broke it down in some different areas as far as what we can recoup, what we can't recoup. And it's been a while. I sent it out when we first had the discussions. And I don't remember what they are. Because I had intended on raising everything that we had because we've never changed them. And after reading through that legislation, that I don't think we can.
Okay. Do you know, Travis, what the caps are?
I don't. So the ones that are in here right now are just the accident report, incident report, and parking tickets. So not the more substantial review that was done. Because didn't you do a few more than those?
Yeah, like I said, I was going to restructure our whole, but then I was told that we got to kind of watch and tread lightly. And I think I sent that all. I think I can dig it out if you don't have it
Yeah.
yet.
These are just much smaller ones than what was initially reviewed.
Well, $10 to me, I'd almost rather let it be nothing. Because it seems like it's going to cost us more to write the bill for $10 than collecting $10 because you have to touch it and you have to touch it. And then we have 2.5% credit card processing. And at $10, why do something?
Yeah, we get record checks daily, not just driving accident reports, but we get record checks. It's almost a daily.
So this is $10 to pull that accident report?
It's not for just accident reports. If somebody's got a question about an incident report, if somebody's got a question about something that happened at an address, we get requests probably every day.
I would ask if my fellow council people would consider a friendly resolution change to address the building fees, but research further the police fees, because at $10, why change it from $5? We're not, it's not covering anything. Or you can just be like, no, I think he's wrong and vote however you want. But that's my ask.
Well, given Chief's comment about what the legislation is going to do, it might be good to do an intermediary step and approve the increase now.
And that's how I found out about it. I remember as I was asking other police chiefs where they were at for fees they were asking, and one of them replied back, watch what you do because of this.
So 10 was their recommendation, was what they came back with?
I think I had a median in the response that I gave back to the city for all the cities our size, what people were asking and doing. And that's just came up in the meeting.
Regarding the building permit, I think the conversation at the time we implemented Greg's position and the whole inspection aspect was to ensure the quality of housing and the benefit it would be toward our housing sector by having homes that we knew were well built because they've been inspected and taken care of that way. And one of the comments was that it wouldn't draw against the general fund. It would be something that would substantiate its own ongo. So I'm in favor of this.
Okay, so we've had a motion and a second discussion. Anything else? Hearing none, roll call?
Luce,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Sittergren,
No.
Hadley,
No,
Johnson.
Aye.
So
Doesn't pass.
doesn't pass, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
And how long before it can be discussed again? A year?
Well, the defeated side, so either Steve, Randy, or Kirk can bring this back at the next. No, sorry, no, the prevailing side, my apologies. So Steve or Ross can bring this back for reconsideration within the next 2 council meetings. Or it needs to wait another year. However, that is for this exact same. So if there is substantial change from it, then it doesn't have to wait a year.
so like if they reviewed and looked more in the police department's things and decided to change something as far as that's concerned, then they could vote on it again at the next meeting?
I would lean more heavily on the building code side since that
Okay.
one's much more in
Okay.
depth. So let's say that one came back with a percentage that was closer to 3%. You know, fees that are closer to 3%.
but I would like to know what the caps are
Mhm.
on the PD side, just because I'd like to know.
I don't know that they're arbitrarily set, but they are limited. They're supposed to be limited to the cost, the administrative cost to provide. Similar to like a FOIA request. So it's supposed to be, you talk about, you know, the time it takes for Kareth to reproduce it, the mailing of
So
it,
is this $10 pulling the report and handing it to somebody? Or is this is not creating this is not the fee that we charge when an accident report occurs.
that is correct. It is the replication, not creation, because one is created regardless if a call is entered. Mhm.
Yeah, I'd still like to know then, because certainly it's a part of their doing business, not a ding on the citizen.
It seems as if, while we're on this agenda item, it seems as if, even though I was on the prevailing side, I mean, I feel like it'd be nice for the other council members who aren't able to be here tonight to have a chance to weigh in, and I'd be happy to put this back on the agenda sometime, especially because Ross's concerns are not the same as mine. This deserves more discussion, so let's bring it back soon.
And then you have direction as far as any information that we just
Yep.
discussed to put on. Okay. Okay. Consider preliminary plat Krebs. I apologize. How about Kratz subdivision? Sorry about that. Can you give us some background on that, please?
Sure, this has been in front of council a couple times now. It was tabled after the last meeting for further discussion. This is in front of council because it's outside the city limits, but within the 2-mile buffer again. So our city code states that as well as state code, that our city subdivision ordinance prevails over that 2-mile buffer. So planning and zoning did review and did recommend approval contingent upon, let's see here. That the stormwater management plan be a contingency. So that items will have to be done as part of development, and that items one B, which was curb and gutter, 1C, streetlights, 1D, street signs, and 2 sidewalks be required if annexed into the city limits. Additional comments have been included from Winnebago County that where it's deficient on their side, and that's in the Dropbox file 15B as well.
Discussion, comment.
You want a resolution phrased in the positive, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Motion should always be made in the affirmative.
Yes.
For approval of the Kratz subdivision preliminary plat. Second.
Moved by Johnson, seconded by Chisel. Discussion.
Can I clarify, is that motion can just flat out, no contingencies, or are there contingencies?
My only concern of any import is the one lot where the Trout Run Trail runs right through the front yard. All the other, I'm not worried about streetlights in that neighborhood. I'm not necessarily worried about the width of the street. I don't look at this neighborhood as anything different than what was built on Motter's Ballroom property a few years ago, or the property where Mr. Kern lives now up on Highway 52. Still on the edge of town, but larger lots. I don't know, I just don't see the difference between that, just because it's slightly closer to town than some of the others. But the one lot where the driveway would cross the Trout Run Trail is of some concern, although at the Freeport area where there are the Trout Run Trail extends out there, it crosses several driveways, and there apparently isn't any problem there. And it also crosses some larger subdivision roads and crosswalks. And so is it really that big of a deal? I don't know. This is not the last time people are going to build something close to the Trout Run Trail. I mean, when you build an amenity like that, it's going to attract, some people that want to be close to that amenity. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not that concerned. I mean, the streetlight issue is a non-issue for many people here because, some of these folks voted against putting the lights on the Green Bridge a few years ago. Based on their non-interest in light pollution and all the other, things it brings. So I don't worry about it.
Can anybody speak to if the easements for Trout Run Trail have been resolved?
Are there issues for the easement?
Well, I just wanted to be clear that the easement ran with the land.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Easements run with the property. They cannot be unilaterally.
After subdivision, it can't be,
Nope.
okay.
Can we ask the developer in any questions since he's in the room tonight?
Sure.
Hey, Kurt, I've been working with Dave Kratz to develop this and stuff over the last year and stuff now. So I guess the one thing I would say is the whole intent of this was it is a rural subdivision. It is on the edge of town. The way the land lays, I mean, Jeremy Brill and both Travis have said, we don't want this in the city limits. I mean, obviously with issues for water, sewer, et cetera, moving forward and stuff that way, that was their recommendations. The P&Z voted unanimously to approve it. The one lot, yes, it does. That driveway will cross the bike trail. Just like Kirk said, there's many other places throughout town that the driveway goes across there and stuff that way. I mean, and there hasn't been any major issues. I mean, it goes right through Burning Rock Products where you have heavy equipment coming in and out all day long. And thankfully, we've not had any incidents with that and stuff. So I guess that's the biggest thing is, yes, you do have the way the code is set up. We had to design it to try to meet city code, even though it's a rural subdivision. That's why the lots are larger. There is no intention of it to want to come into the city. Obviously, if the property does want to be annexed into the city, it is the developer and the property owner's responsibility to bring it up to code at that time. But then after that, the city would be liable for it. And I know that's why Jeremy was not wanting it to come in just because of the liability of maintaining everything with the lift stations and such like that. And then also trying to get water pressure up to there and everything else. And the big thing is the county has said they do not want any public subdivisions anymore because they'd rather them built like this where all the costs and burdens fall on the property owners, but yet they still get the full benefit of tax. Same thing with the addition that Dalen's did, just that is in the city limits. It's like you're getting full tax revenue with no exposure to any infrastructure costs or anything else that way. So it's a model a lot of places are going to and works out good that way. So I guess I don't know why you'd be against it and stuff. I mean, that way you're getting a lot of the benefits and stuff that way. So we just talked to Steve about how we need housing and need more development to try to, ease the burden of housing. Well, here's a great opportunity to create more housing and free up more housing stock. So.
Thank you.
So just out of curiosity, because I'm just reading the covenants. Why nothing under 2,000 square feet?
That was the owner's wishes.
Okay.
I don't have an answer to it other than that was just what he wanted for minimums and stuff that way.
Sure. And as far as stormwater management goes, how did that play out? I just wasn't clear. I looked at Jeremy's letter again and.
The biggest thing is I mean, most cities don't require the stormwater management plan until after the approval of the preliminary plat, just because it costs so much to develop. So you develop a plat, you don't approve it, you've spent a bunch of extra money. Most of them require it after the preliminary and before the final.
So the stormwater.
And it is a contingency. If you approve it.
Right.
Yes, no,
Okay.
it will be developed. It's just, we haven't done it because, it's another $8,000-9,000 that they got to spend that if you turn it down, then they've spent $8,000 for nothing. But like Cedar Rapids and stuff, that's the way they have their, because the engineer deals a lot with them. And he said, most cities do not require it just because of the extra fee. They want to make sure the plat is finalized, because if you change it, then you got to redo the stormwater and it's a big cost. That's why, but no, we're not against doing it. We just wanted to do it after preliminary approval.
So if this is approved and the road is approved as is and so on, will the county take care of the snow removal or is it just a?
No, it's private.
It's private.
It's all
So
private. It's
all
a private
those- All the people
subdivision.
are going to share in the cost then of their well. And
Yep.
they're going to have to have their own sewer system and they're going to have to pay someone to shovel their snow.
Correct.
Okay.
And we put all the provisions in there where if for whatever reason somebody did want to annex it in, the street is wide enough as platted, the right of way and stuff that way and everything else. So, I mean, if you wanted to go in and make it conform to city standards, it's all set up that way.
So you just redo the cul-de-sac? Because isn't the cul-de-sac not to code?
It's the length. That's a county. Yes. So we do have to go to the Board of Adjustment for that. The county's granted them.
Right, but I mean, city code, you were saying we're building everything to city code. So if anybody ever were to want to annex.
Yes, there is a variance for that we do have to get. Yes.
Okay.
I've just got a quick one. The conflict being created between the driveway and the trail. Is there a plan for signage on the driveway to basically make it clear that the trail users have the right of way? I mean, there's yield signs on the trail in some places.
Yeah.
But the reason for that is that the driveways were there before the trail. The trail is here before the driveway. I'm just curious, is there a plan?
Well, there is actually a crossing there pre-existing for the farm use and
farm
stuff there.
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, if up there is that section of the trail is concrete. That's true.
The parties and.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there might be a bench up there already near that area.
Yeah, I'd be
At
to
the
the
top of the-
south some
Would
way.
that have to be moved or would it stay in the trail right away?
That's at the trail right away. And like I say, the trail easement's all perpetual. So there's nothing, I mean, any changes to it would have to be agreed upon by the county conservation and the homeowner, which I don't foresee there being any changes need to be made unless it was something to try to benefit, the trail use.
Okay, so we've had a motion and a second and discussion.
Is there clarification? Thanks for your comments, Dave. Is there a couple points of clarification? The first one is, that sort of observation that the city's not responsible for Dalen's infrastructure. That's not accurate. We have to replace it when it goes bad. It's going to be in the end expensive. I mean, that's an expensive commitment the city made when it annexed that lot. The second clarification, I guess, and I want to be really clear about this from Kirk. I think when Travis asked you, Kirk, did you want to make this contingent on anything? And you just said the only thing I'm worried about is this crossing. I think Travis was actually trying to call your attention to the recommended contingencies from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so I want to be sure that that's the intent of your motion, one way or the other. I just want to really understand, do you intend to make your resolution contingent on what the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended?
If they're recommending street lights and sidewalks and let's see. The stormwater management plan, as I understand, will be taken care of later. Curb and gutter is something that we require in the city. The county does not require that. Street lights, I don't have a problem with. Obviously, street signs, they're going to have a stop sign at the corner, I'm sure.
So the question is, are you making your motion contingent in?
No,
You're not gonna say the things that P and Z said.
I think if these things are required, if they annex, then yes. But I'm assuming that all these things
It's
are
approval contingent upon stormwater management plan. That's ahead of
curb and gutter, street lights, street signs,
that's only
sidewalks.
annexation.
If it's required, yeah,
Required,
all of those things, not just sidewalks, correct?
It's stormwater management.
Okay.
Either way.
I will make I will rephrase my motion. I will move for approval with the planning and zoning recommended approval contingent upon the items. 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Didn't mean to be pedantic, but I really do appreciate knowing for sure what you were saying. So thanks.
And Randy, does your second support that?
If annexed, right?
That's
And,
if-
and,
that's
uh,
if it's
and
annexed.
the stormwater.
If it's annexed.
But the rest of the,
Because that's only if it's annexed, right?
I'll second the amendment.
Okay, so
Okay.
just so I know we're beating the horse, but stormwater management is regardless of annexation or not. The other items are triggered upon annexation.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Great. Can I actually raise, now that we have a good question and answer, can we understand what we're voting on? Can I share my opinion about what we're voting on?
can you keep it
Sure.
brief? Sure.
I think, I appreciate Tate's point that, that we, do have a housing crisis in Decorah, and that more housing stock, even if it's houses that most people can't afford, does kind of lift all boats. It creates, more housing on the market, and then supply and demand does its thing. So I'm grateful for the creativity around trying to develop more housing. We need to do more about it. I'm proud of a lot of what we've done already to address our housing situation, but more housing is certainly a good thing. That said, I think that encouraging a ring of fairly sparse sprawl around the city that uses our services like police and fire protection and our roads, our city amenities, the parking that we will need to provide for the increased traffic. That isn't a really great stewardship of a fairly limited resource. The only one they don't make more of, the land in our urban area. And I think the state government was showing some wisdom when they gave cities the authority to weigh in on development that effectively is right on their doorstep. I mean, there's a reason this development isn't planned for 8 miles east of Bluffton or north of Bluffton or, somewhere else farther away. They want to avail themselves of a lot of the taxpayer supported services that our city provides without having to share in the financial burdens of them. And I don't think that makes very good financial sense. This is a development pattern that our city managers told us doesn't pay out, that even if they were part of the city and we could tax them on the value of the development they're doing, it still wouldn't pay its own way in terms of the eventual need to repair the sewer and replace the sewer and replace the roads. And that's not even to speak of all the other amenities that they're going to be using, whether they're part of the city or not. And so I don't think that this would be a good idea if it were part of the city. And therefore, I think it's even clearer that it's not a good idea, given that we won't be able to tax them. That's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Mayor.
And I'm changing my vote just so people know why I'm changing my vote,
We haven't always voted.
what we voted in the past.
Yeah, that's okay.
And my vote is changing because of the work of planning and zoning
Mhm.
and on stormwater, on the work that work is required if annexed, and understanding the cost of what annexation would be. If development's driven in that area, it's a wholesale push toward development in that area, not these 6 homes. And these 6 homes will bring more people into our school district. It won't affect our taxation, but given the fact that it's a private area and a homeowner supported everything else, I'm gonna vote in favor. That being said, I do support what Steve said about development within the community and areas that would be not challenging from an area to annex. So if there was an area of a development that was not a limestone bluff, where having to put in $1.5 million worth of sewer and water to annex it, we'd be having a very different conversation right now, because we'd be pushing for protection of that area and really looking at the future of that being annexed now or eventually. So
Okay.
I just one correction to what Ross said. I believe what we're looking at here is actually 10 lots, 10 homes, correct?
There's, 10 lots.
Right.
Thanks, Ross. That was well said.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross.
Okay, roll call.
Johnson,
Aye.
Chisel, Hadley,
aye.
Luce,
No,
Zittergren.
No,
Motion carried.
Actually,
Correct.
that's only 3.
How many did they have to have?
Gotta have 4.
4. Okay.
should be able to.
Okay. Consider resolution regarding sunflower donation request. Travis.
All right, so the Sustainability Commission received a request from Sunflower Child Care and Discovery Center for a $5,000 donation request over 5 consecutive years, so 10,000 per year, towards the purchase of a watershed exhibit that would be based on the Upper Iowa River watershed. Sustainability Commission thought it would fit within their educational aspect of the sustainability plan, helping explain the watershed itself. And the commission is recommending a one-time grant of $10,000 to Sunflower. I know there was a bit of discussion among the commission because they were talking about with their budget, with the reduction from the state's reduction. And the council subsequently said, you need to reduce your budget for fiscal 24. There was a lot of discussion around this before it finally ended up with a recommendation. So, and based on those budget discussions, the council wished to retain the approval of individual expenditures from the Sustainability Commission. That's why it's here in front of council. These funds would come from the half of the electric franchise fee revenues that are earmarked for sustainability.
Hadley will make a motion to approve the Sustainability Commission's recommendation to Sunflower.
second by Luce.
Motion made by Hadley, seconded by Luce. Further discussion?
I just had a question about the phrase recommendation. I was not at the sustainability meeting, but I did read their minutes. And the phrasing of the motion after some discussion seemed more to be in the vein of they recommended it to us for our consideration and not that they recommended that we do this. Is that an accurate reflection of the spirit of their recommendation?
They had a long and lengthy discussion on it. I would say that even to get to the motion, second, it took a bit. Can you clarify as according
you
to
there,
what it
Travis?
said?
I was there
Yeah.
and I know the way it was presented was that the Sustainability Commission would have to make this request of the council to make the donation, that they unilaterally couldn't say, yes, here's $10,000. So
Your question, was it a recommendation or was it
or a recommendation to consider.
Right, and I know that sounds like, but it seems like an important distinction because it sounds like they weren't necessarily, super enthused about it. I wanted to get a sense of their real spirit. Do they just want us to consider it?
your idea that they weren't enthused is correct? What does it say? Do you have the minutes in front? of
Yeah,
you?
that's what I'm trying to pull up. Thanks, Mayor.
It's 008D in Dropbox.
Okay, a motion made by Aaron Detter to consider Sunflower Discovery Center request for 10,000 1 year. Okay, made by Aaron Detter for City Council to consider Sunflower Discovery Center request for $10,000 for 1 year. And then it seconded and was passed unanimously. And I just want to, it seems like a pretty milquetoast.
Mhm.
Not that they're recommending we do it, but that they wanted us to consider it.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure we're all proceeding with that correct interpretation here.
I think too that their idea of if they have some discretionary funds that they could use in that fashion, that in the future, it could be more like a grant that other organizations could apply for as well.
Lorraine, Mayor, I'm sorry. I'm leaning towards I'm racking my brain on this. I think it was a recommendation to, and then it might be a phrasing issue.
Mhm.
Because just the amount of back discussion that they had, talked about other grants that could be considered that in lieu of this, make them compete for, like just set a general $10,000 grant that they would open to the community for thoughts. And ultimately chose to go this path of voting on this to advance to council. So Mayor,
Yeah,
would
I
you
would
take
agree with that. No, I would agree with that.
Well, I guess we're in discussion, yeah? I would
Yeah.
just say that, I think $50,000 over 5 years for a watershed exhibit might be excessive. But I think watershed is important. We are supporting the watershed activity and water quality in other areas and other programs. It's unfortunate that Kirsten isn't here to speak on this, because I know he's been very active in the watershed and water quality efforts. The fact that we live in an area where the water table is 8 feet is very important for people to understand. And I know that we have funding in the sustainability portfolio
Mhm.
or budget for things. And educating our children on a watershed seems like a good cause. And whether they fully wholeheartedly recommended the $10,000 or whether we can just say, yep, $10,000 is worth providing to children to educate them on watershed, I guess wouldn't change my vote one way or another. So,
And they were pretty clear that it was a one-time.
right. Yep.
10,000. Yep.
So, yeah.
And I think usually parents are with children and or adults and can be influenced by exhibits as well. So
Yeah. And if this is
for that perspective as
if
well.
this is a discovery center
Yeah.
where it's open to more than just sunflower students,
Correct.
it's potentially a pollination spot for education. So I think we should support it.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just that my reservations are rooted in our recent, refusal to fund any other nonprofit, basically, for good budgetary reasons. I know that this is sustainability dollars and it's slightly different, but this is the only organization we've substantively supported to the tune of $500,000 in the past few years.
Correct.
And so there's definitely a limit on how many times I want to, continue to fund this particular organization, no matter how worthwhile their work is. There's a lot of worthwhile organizations in town.
Okay. Roll call.
Hadley,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Jizzle,
No.
Zittergrund.
Aye.
Motion carried. Discussion on food trucks.
Let's see.
All right. So this was discussed at the last council meeting. I got a little bit of feedback, enough to be dangerous. So I've prepared two very, very rough, somewhat generic ordinances for consideration. One would allow for food trucks to operate by special event permit only. So it would fall into our existing special event permit application. Both these ordinances, I should point out, are left fairly generic and says the city shall, it creates the allowance for them and then says the city shall create a program that allows us to provide flexibility and have a council adopt it by a simple item or resolution, if we want to go that far. So let's say we figure out, actually, we want to say, not on Sundays for some reason. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying we shouldn't do food trucks on Sundays. But if that's a minor alteration council wants to make, we can adopt it by resolution one time and not have to read it 3 times and print it in the paper and all that fun stuff. So the first ordinance in your packet, 009B, that would allow through the special event permit only, which currently is a $20 fee per event. It would be submitted to City Hall and it would come in front of council for consideration. So that's one avenue, just like we do for other special events. The second draft in there, 009C, same generality, is talking about the city shall establish a program, would allow for the operation by special event permit or license. And the reason I threw this in there as a possibility, with a special event permit application, it requires an action of the council for a specific date, specific time, specific event. If the council wants to say, allow food trucks to operate within public right of way on public space by license, that's no different than coming into the city clerk's office and getting a peddler's license. So it doesn't require an act of council, but council establishes the programs that they operate under. So for example, if we said a food truck can operate by license, however, not in these prohibited areas such as Water Street, council can establish a program that says you can go ahead and operate. Here are the guidelines. Here's the established fee structure based on this program. So basically I wanted to have council have this conversation. Which route do you want me to focus in on? Come next time with accompanying resolution to establish said program. So we can, this would take 3 readings of the ordinance, then we would adopt a resolution at the end.
Just a quick question on the special events.
Mhm.
If we went by permitting, could they pick multiple dates similar to what lawn chair night does?
Correct. Yep.
So one fee, they could do every Wednesday night at whatever, so we know the location that they're gonna be set up at.
That is, they pay that times however many. So if it's every Wednesday or Impact Coffee does trivia night on Thursday, every Thursday,
Okay,
it's that number of days times 20. But they can fill out the permit application once.
It's in 9B. Would that be considered 9B?
The special event would be allowed by either one.
Okay, I see.
9C is the one that allows for licensing.
I would be more in tune with the 9B, so just so we know where they are, and if we need to get the police or street department involved to block off parking for reservations. So if they're gonna set up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon for dinner, supper, we're blocking them off at 3 o'clock so that they can get their vehicles in and out more easily.
Mhm.
So I would be in favor of the 9B.
Seeing this is discussion, can I take somebody from the audience that would like to speak to it?
It's your
I
show.
get to do it. Good. You want to come up? I'll have to remember that line.
That's your show.
Thank you.
Just
My
state
name
your name.
is Russell Novak. I made a substantial investment in this company for
Mm.
the restaurant industry, as long with several other restaurants in this community that pay substantial amount of property tax in this community. Not hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. And now we're looking at having food trucks that come and go in our community, collect money from our citizens, and then leave. They don't sponsor school events. They don't do other things for the community that every one of these restaurants uptown and around this community that do. And they put a lot of money back into this community. They come in and get donations for several events, all the restaurants uptown, including my own. And then now all of a sudden we have lawn chair night and we allow a food truck for $20 to go up there instead of supporting our local restaurants around our community. Then the next one would be farmer's market. Farmer's market pays pennies to utilize property in the city limits. And now we're thinking about letting them have food trucks there. I'd like to have no property taxes on my restaurant too, but I don't think that's feasible. So I don't think this is something we should consider at all.
Okay.
Private property is where we put restaurants. Thank you.
Yeah, right, okay. And considering this is just a discussion,
I'm also in support of 009B. I share some of Mr. Novak's concerns about sort of the proliferation of food trucks. And I worry that developing, a whole permitting structure might also just sort of encourage food trucks to be like, oh, I can just park on a city street and get a permit and basically open a little restaurant somewhere convenient, across from the bowling alley all summer. What 9B does, in my opinion, is it basically takes the status quo that developed kind of organically, and it seems like everyone's been just fine with it until now, which is that, if you've got a big event with a lot of people, they're not going to cross the street, not all of them, to go and get a breakfast sandwich at your bowling alley, but so I guess there's a reason that there's a couple food trucks at the farmer's market, that they're associated with an event. And I think that's the important thing, that they're not just sitting there setting up shops that they can open a competing restaurant. Some of the good points that Russell made. So I like 9B. I think that it's simplest. It allows people to check a box and provide the services that frankly have already been being provided in a lot of places.
Travis, what was your impetus for 9C to do that venue?
Well, the last council meeting, there were only really 3 comments provided out of 7 council members. So I was told to come back with some options. And here we are with options. The licensing concept would allow the council to set we'll call them parameters. Thank you. For the program for them to operate. And then it's just a permit you're issued, much like a pillar's permit, like a building permit. You follow the rules, here's your permit. Now, that permit typically has fees associated with it. And so again, those fees would be established by this council, and it's very common that, especially food truck related, based on some of the comments that based on the comments we just heard, those costs are usually pretty high. An annual license might run several hundreds or thousands of dollars to operate. So again, that would be a full 365 days you could operate within the rules of the program, but that's an avenue the council could consider.
I also, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just was going to make the brief note that we heard some nice correspondence from, at least I did, from another downtown restaurant owner or proprietor. And he was very supportive of the special event way of doing this. He thought that it didn't weaken his restaurant to have the foot traffic that festival events generate, even if food trucks take on some of that business. They like to spill over traffic. As an example, last Thursday, I was at the trivia night, which is sort of sponsored by Impact Coffee. I ordered a pizza from Mabes just to prove the point.
Thank
So
you.
everything okay, Mayor?
Yes, except I apologize. I was
I was just gonna say that it's still public. So you don't have to eat from a food truck. And I think that a lot of the downtown businesses welcome that. We just have to make sure we do it right.
You're welcome to come up and speak as well. Just state your name.
Thank you. Kyle Holthouse with Kymar Acres and
With
we
what,
do operate.
please?
What's that? Kymar Acres.
Okay,
And we do operate a food truck, Kymar Cafe. We strictly do it at Decorah Farmers Market. We've been down there for 4 years. We bring a lot of people to Decorah. There aren't a lot of options in Decorah for breakfast on Saturday mornings. And we're also a regular vendor at Farmers Market. We're one of the more tenured ones down there. We do pay to Farmers Market to be able to have stalls there. And what we do on our or with our truck is everything that we produce, we bring from our farm. I appreciate the investment that businesses make in town, and I frequent those businesses myself. But I also think that it is nice to have a different option once in a while for, and I would consider farmers market an event. We do have our licensing that we have through the state, quite a number of them. And we have inspections and all that good stuff. We carry the insurance. We are a regular business. I can understand not going and setting up on a regular street and doing so. But I hope that we can continue to come to Decorah with our food truck. We've made a large investment for that. Not the same as a brick and mortar. But it is a way that we are growing our farm and keeping our local dollars local. Thank you for your time.
thank you. So it sounded perhaps like you would go and work on 9B and bring it back.
Well, I was gonna say, I prefer C in the idea of the revenues of the licensing.
Okay.
And setting the parameters of when that can be.
I'd like to have more time. I don't have an opinion on this. I'd like to take 9B and see both and do some solicitation of my constituents
Okay,
and have a better sense of opinion. I have a personal opinion, but I don't think my
okay.
personal opinion
Yeah.
necessarily on this one.
Is there any other further advice?
No, but I just appreciate the two options at this point. I just don't feel that I've had enough time to discuss it with people to bring it back for a motion one way or another.
That's okay.
Mhm.
Okay, do you have a question?
Uh,
Other than,
Yeah,
can you give
couple.
them more direction as to which way to
So-
go?
At this point, I'll work on. I'm not hearing opposition to the special event permit side of things, at least from the word go. So I will work on the program side for special event permit. And should council at a later time give me direction that we want to also include licensing, excuse me, I will include the program. I will include that as part of the program requirements as well. So that's what I'll start working on. I will hold off until 2 council members tell me to put it on the next agenda. That's what I'm going to treat as at least 2 people are ready to go on this.
Yeah, thinking about the license portion of it, there are a number of food trucks in Decorah that operate quite a bit, quite often, There are also visiting trucks that come once in a blue moon. If you're going to expect those folks to buy a license for the few times a year that they're here, then they won't come. And maybe that I guess I'm leaning a little bit more toward the permit for events.
But to be clear, most of the food trucks that operate Decorah do it on private property, and neither of these things touch that. Am I right to say that, right?
And by existing, the way we operate and the permits that would have to be pulled, they all should be on private property. We don't have anything
Right,
that
right.
would, so they all should be on private property. right
The
now.
licensing would include anybody set up anywhere.
Correct, but you can structure the fees, and this is also very common. I talk about, it's usually several hundred up to thousands of dollars for the year. But it is very common to break that into 6 months, 3 months, 1 month. So that you could even, if you wanted to do a day license, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. If you're gonna do the special event permit and licensing, I think the 1 day license is kind of overkill. But you could structure fees like that as well on the licensing side.
So we'll have more discussion. One more time?
Just one more. Just in question for you, on public.
Okay.
So I mean, private property, have them all done. And I eat it, Leslie Taco, I eat it all. But it's nice, it's on private property, they're paying their part.
Okay, well, we'll continue on a discussion on that. And you can wait till you get two councilmen to bring
'Cause
more
that's-
information.
And that's our
we'll-
council rules and procedures. I'm not just making that up.
So,
Just to be clear now, like, I'm gonna put Nordic Fest because we just approved them tonight.
Mhm.
They allow in their district only nonprofits to sell, so they
Mhm.
would not fall under this, correct?
Well, and that was part of the question that came up of
yeah,
Nordic Fest sells, you have the food booths, food huts, and we say, yes, that's fine, but we say no, food trucks, regardless of really what their designation is outside of that. So that was a question that was posed when this kind of came to light of, well, wait a minute. If we tell everyone, no, food trucks are prohibited on city streets right away as public land, but we do a street closure and then Nordic Fest puts all the huts out and then sells food. That's what we were trying to figure out.
well, it sounds like it's safe to say that it probably won't affect the Nordic Fest this year.
I'm not gonna be the one to do that.
Shouldn't.
Well, if you're gonna make it, but if you're gonna make it, you have, and isn't an ordinance, then you have to have 3 readings.
Correct.
Okay. I won't say that.
I don't like
mean,
being the
was-
city manager that says I'm not doing that, but
No,
you guys
I
tell me.
get
to-
it. I get it. I'm only just making a comment that it's short of time if you're making some
Yeah.
great change between
Yeah.
now and Nordic Fest.
Mhm.
Okay. Discussion on municipal elections.
All right, I did have it pointed out that the city of Decorah is the only city in Wishy County that operates under the runoff election format for our city positions. So that means in a runoff election, you need 50% of the vote plus one. This has not been an issue. This is a little bit of a looking for a solution without a problem, because it hasn't been an issue in the past. However, if Decorah has more than 2 candidates run for any given position, you have the potential for a runoff election being required if not one single candidate gets 50% of the vote plus one. Think of Bill Clinton, Ross Perot, George Bush. When you've got 3 candidates and you're divvying up the votes now 3 ways, you have that potential. And this is the best civic portion. But the our current format is runoff election, 50% plus one. So if you got 3 candidates and you've got 40, 30, 30. Let's don't do that. 30s are ties. 40, 35,
Then you have a real
25.
problem.
Then you got a real problem. You got 40, 35, 25. Your 40 and your 35 now face each other in a runoff election a few weeks later that the city has to pay for at the tune of a couple $1,000s. So this, if the council wants to change runoff election format to regular election, which is simply the highest vote total. So again, in that scenario of 40, 35, 25, the person who got 40% of the vote, they win. Again, the runoff, we'd have to pay for a special election after the general election to figure out that winner between the top two. That deadline to make that change would be August 9th because of candidates getting their paperwork in to be on the ballot for next year, or this year, excuse me.
But this does not go for a vote before the public at all. It just depends upon what the process is that the city chooses.
Correct. This
that
is
correct?
not a change in the form of government. This
Yeah.
would be just our election format.
Council person that would like to see it come to us. Time for the August 9.
You want to see a change to the regular?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Spending the extra money for runoff. Smart investing.
I disagree with you, Randy. I can appreciate the perspective. I don't think this has been a problem in the past, but I could easily imagine scenarios where, let's say, 30% of people like candidate with similar value A, 30% like candidate with similar value B, but they pretty much vote for the other one if the first wasn't in the race. Well, candidate with other values, C is going to win with 40% in that scenario, even though that's not how the voters would choose if they could actually have their choice. We're talking about a $2,000 investment to ensure that the voters get the candidate that best represents the majority of the voters' wishes. And to me, that's worth an investment, especially given that we've never made it. I'd also like to remind everyone that passing an ordinance probably costs us close to half an election. I mean, in terms of the publication requirements and our staff legal time and our staff time and all of our time. So I personally think, I appreciate you trying to clarify and clean up the code. I think this is a solution for a problem we've never had.
Anybody else?
I think if people are playing with their votes, hoping that someone else doesn't, that's their fault for how they vote. And if another person wins, so be it. If they don't vote for who they support, that's a backward. I think.
If you only win with 38% of the vote, I mean, that's not democracy. That's just, I don't know what that is, but I really think that having a runoff is a wise way to ensure that we're actually following the voters' interests and who represents them.
What's the prevailing thing for cities for this type of electional vote? I mean, not that we would do it that way, but are there more that do it with a runoff, or is more of a just
I
the?
would say some do have primaries, which is the inverse of a runoff
Okay.
election where you have it if you have 3 or 4 candidates that petition for a certain seat, they face each other in a primary, and then the top ones move on to the general. So that's the inverse of it. Some cities do that.
But then you're double, then your
Then you're
election costs double, yeah.
Yeah, you're almost guaranteeing you're gonna have 2 elections every time.
That kind of varies.
Since
don't know that I
elections are nonpartisan, I guess I'm kind of with Steve. I think you should have to get 50% plus one of the vote. And if we have to run off the election, and like I said, it hasn't been a problem. If it becomes a problem, then perhaps, a future counselor can deal with it. But have we had any, has that happened at all in the last 30 years?
So not in Ben Steinus's tenure.
Okay.
So is the runoff where it's 50+1, or is it the other one that's 50+1?
So the runoff is what requires 50% plus 1. It
Okay,
is after the fact. So
The other
if
So you X out the lower vote candidates and the top 2 voting candidates get to run off, correct?
correct. Yep.
Regardless of how many people are in that first election. If there were 5,
It's only
it's only the top 2.
Correct, because it nearly forces a 50% plus 1. I say nearly because in theory you can tie. And then, show of hands, anybody know how that's solved?
Candidate whose name is last out.
oh.
Flip of the coin. It is dead serious, a flip of the coin if it's a title.
Remember.
Oh, see, the Boy Scouts should have stayed.
All right,
What, Randy? Have a duel.
okay, so,
All right, so I've got 2 and 2, so I will hold off until I hear otherwise from again, at least 2 council members to put it on the agenda, but of the 2 that would want to change I would probably talk and get a third, maybe.
I'll go 50% plus one.
Okay.
That's what it is now.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Appointments to Board of Appeals. We actually, for a long time, we didn't have anybody. Now we have 6. David Finhold, Nathan Compton, Dexter Quandall, Travis Growan, Aaron Dalen, and Travis Mossman. My recommendation is to bring David Finhold, Dexter Quandall, Travis Growan, Aaron Dalen, and Travis Mossman forward. I know I talked to Greg just a little bit about Nathan Compton, who's an architect with could be advantageous. I think that he's not as familiar with this area, whether you need that or not, but yeah, that's right.
He's an architect with ethos,
Right.
and code says you just have to be able to do business in Decorah as well. But
So, the 5 that I just stated is what I recommend for appointment to the Board of Appeals.
I'd move for approval of the 5 mayor's choices for the Board of Appeals.
I second with thanks for everyone who put their name forward.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Zittergruen. Any further discussion?
Just from a communications and recruiting aspect, how did you end up getting 5 after we went through so many years of not having anyone apply? How do we suddenly have a full docket? What was the hook?
did you see how well the applications were filled out? I'm somewhat kidding,
Yeah.
but we said, please fill these out. Yeah.
Okay.
It was tough. Don't get us wrong.
All right, I just wanted to make sure they knew what they were signing, like,
Well, there was a bit of, this is a board that's been established for the last 2 years and never once been called for use.
right,
So would you please
yeah,
please fill this out?
all right.
It's a good thing for your college application.
Yes, there you go.
All right, any further discussion? Roll call?
Chisel,
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Luce.
Aye.
Hadley.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Decorah Historic Preservation Commission opening. We have an opening for 1. We're announcing, I'm making that announcement. And so if there's anybody interested, we have 1 applicant that's interested. Would we wait and then make that at the first meeting in July, or can we do that at the next meeting?
Let's see, you could do it as soon as the next meeting. There's no mandatory
Okay.
posting requirement. How about
Okay.
that for a commission opening?
Okay, it'll be open until probably that Thursday prior to the next meeting, which is June, what is it?
Would be June 15th.
Okay. Okay. Then for the last item on our agenda is for the council to go into closed session for Travis's evaluation.
So before we go into it,
Okay. That's what
so I
said.
will point out, so as the mayor pointed out, it's for evaluation. If council wants to wait until the next meeting, it's feasible. We certainly can. I know Emily had an emergency. She wasn't able to be here. Kirsten's out, but she did send me her evaluation, so we can move forward. I just wanted to put it in front of you guys before a motion's made, so we don't have to deal with.
I'm comfortable doing business with 6 council members, but it does feel a little bit strange tonight that the majority is lost twice. And I personally just rather wait and make sure that the others can have a chance to weigh in also.
I think that'd be a good idea too.
I think so
I
too. And
support that as well, yeah.
I personally would like more time.
Okay.
to work
Also,
with it.
Travis, you don't want to get evaluated in a room with broken air conditioning
Yes. Yes,
at dinner time.
So,
right. I'll bring treats.
so then is
I
there,
have all nice things.
is
You don't
there,
have to-
Motion to table item 13 until our next council meeting.
Second.
motion made by Chisel, seconded by Luce. Any discussion? Roll call?
Chisel,
Aye.
Luce,
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I also appreciate you conferring and making sure we know what we're working with as far as what we had to do for action. Okay, city manager, department heads, and council reports.
Just, I did send out a press release before the start of the council meeting regarding the police chief candidate search. So, the city of Decorah will be interviewing 4 candidates for police chief. And they include Scott Birch, chief of police with Sheldon Police Department, Scott Herman, assistant chief of police with the Decorah Police Department, Michael Maratchek of Kansas City training coordinator with the FBI, and Tricia Tyne, a lieutenant with the Marshtown Police Department. We'll be doing a public reception at 4:30 PM on Friday, June 16th at the Hotel Winneshiek in the lobby there for the public to go ahead and gather and meet the candidates. And I also point out as a reminder, next council meeting is June 19th. Yes, that is a federal holiday of Juneteenth. However, it's not established as a city observed holiday. So we do have a city council meeting next on June 19th.
Okay. Carrie?
I would just ask that the members of council that are going through the invoices and approving them to be watching your email the rest of the month. It is the last month of the fiscal year. So it'll be important that we get all of those through. And I will be in touch and keep you updated through email.
Okay. Anything from the department heads? Randy?
Mayor.
Steve Luce?
There's a SMID meeting Wednesday morning. In the minutes of the last meeting reported the downtown betterment was looking at another electric golf cart to be able to service the baskets of flowers that are now hanging in our community.
I believe that's already been acquired and I don't know if it's quite in service yet. Is it in service? Mike and his guys helped out.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Steve Zittigren?
Just to say that, I meant it when I said that I don't want to be on the prevailing side with the minority of the votes. I really do believe in democracy more than I believe in getting my way. So I'm very open to reconsidering the 2 items that failed if having the other 2 council members here might help us make a different decision. I want them to have a chance, so.
Okay. Ross?
No, ma'am.
Sure.
Nothing.
I've got a couple of things. One of the things is we celebrated the installation of the VFW's site down on Mary Christopher Park. I think they had over 300 people there. There was a lot of work that went on to that. It was great to be able to see people actually go in and view their family members. It was emotional, but the day was beautiful. The food went great. The parade was good also. I have requested from Andy Nimrod to take back to the Park and Recreation Board and the camping ground for consideration on what can be looked into as far as when the atmosphere gets as dense as it is now and adding additional camping smoke. What can be done in relation to that? I know that we've done a study in the past, but I think that there are times such as this when we haven't had Canadian smoke. But I know I can go on the weather bug, but you can also go online and see what the quality of weather is. But I'd like them to be able to look to approach some type of what could be done, even if it's making information. I mean, I can't tell them exactly what that would be, but I'd really like that review. And Andy said he'd take it back to the Park and Rec. So.
And we could also do air quality alerts through Groupcast. You know, we have the Groupcast
Oh,
text.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Text program. And through sustainability, there are the air quality meters in town. So if we could have Carrie coordinate with, I'm not sure who on sustainability covers air quality, but make sure
Okay.
that we're monitoring that website. And, you know, that could be triggering information about recreational cooking fires at the campground
Mhm.
based upon air quality. So
Well, and that would be good suggestions. I'll
I mean,
pass that on.
we're already doing it.
Mhm.
We worked on air quality, and this is obviously one of those times. that
Well, one of
affects-
the easiest ways is if you go in and Google air quality index, tells you exactly. Like I said, WeatherBug, it tells you exactly there. I think they used the purple
Purple monitors,
Pro-
yeah.
monitor when they checked before. But I appreciate that. I'm sure I'm not the only asthmatic in the town. It is difficult at times. Okay, anything else? Okay,
Move to adjourn.
thank you. Thank you very much.